The yellow school bus pulled up to the iron gates of Riverside Academy, and Amara Johnson felt her stomach twist into knots. Through the window, she could see students in crisp navy uniforms walking across perfectly manicured lawns, laughing and chatting like they owned the world. This wasn't like her old schools. This place looked more like a college campus than a high school. "You ready, sweetie?" her mom asked from the driver's seat. She had taken the morning off work to drive Amara on her first day. Amara forced a smile. "Yeah, Mom, I'm good," but she wasn't good. Not really. This was her third school in 2 years, and each time got harder. Every new school meant starting over, proving herself all over again, being the outsider all over again. At least at her last school, she'd finally made some friends. Now she had to do it all again. Her dad's military career meant moving was just part of life. Amara understood that. She was proud of her father's service, but understanding it didn't make it any easier to walk into a cafeteria full of strangers or sit alone at lunch while everyone else had their established friend groups. "Remember what Dad said this morning," her mom said, reaching over to squeeze Amara's hand. "Hold your head high. You're smart, you're strong, and you're kind. Anyone would be lucky to be your friend." Amara nodded, grabbed her red backpack, and stepped out of the car. The morning air was crisp and cool. Fall leaves scattered across the parking lot as a breeze swept through. She took a deep breath and walked toward the main entrance. Inside, everything gleamed. The floors were actual marble, not the scuffed linoleum she was used to. Trophy cases lined the walls, filled with awards for academics, sports, and arts. A massive banner hung from the ceiling. Riverside Academy, Excellence in Education since 1952. Great, Amara thought. A school with a pedigree. She found her way to the main office where a secretary with kind eyes helped her get her schedule and locker assignment. The woman explained where her classes were and pointed out the cafeteria on a map. Amara thanked her and headed out to find her locker. The hallways were already filling up with students. Groups of friends reunited after the weekend, hugging and laughing. Couples walked hand in hand. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. Amara found her locker and fumbled with the combination. It took her 3 tries to get it open. When she finally did, she quickly shoved her backpack inside and pulled out the books she needed for her first 2 classes. "You're new." Amara turned to find a girl standing next to her. She had warm brown skin, curly hair pulled into a ponytail, and a friendly smile. "Yeah," Amara said, relieved to have someone actually talk to her. "Just transferred." "I'm Amara. I'm Jasmine." "What grade?" "Junior. Same." "What's your first class?" Amara checked her schedule. "English with Mrs. Rodriguez. Oh, you'll like her. She's tough but fair." "I had her last year." Jasmine glanced at her phone. "I've got to run to orchestra practice, but maybe I'll see you around." "Yeah, that'd be great." Jasmine hurried off, and Amara felt a small spark of hope. Maybe this school wouldn't be so bad after all. At least one person had been nice to her. The morning classes went smoothly enough. Teachers introduced her to the class. Students glanced her way with mild curiosity. And Amara took notes and tried to get a feel for how things worked at Riverside Academy. By third period, she was starting to relax a little. Then came lunch. Amara walked into the cafeteria and immediately felt overwhelmed. The room was huge, with high ceilings and large windows that let in streams of natural sunlight. Round tables filled the space, each one occupied by different groups. She could already identify the social hierarchies just by observing for a few seconds. The athletes sat together near the windows, their Letterman jackets and varsity hoodies marking their territory. The theater kids occupied a corner, dramatically gesturing as they talked. The academic types huddled over textbooks and laptops. And right in the center of it all, commanding the best table in the room, sat a group that clearly ruled the school. At the head of that center table was a blonde girl who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. She wore the same uniform as everyone else, but somehow on her it looked designer. Her hair fell in perfect waves, her makeup was flawless, and she held court like a queen with her subjects. Amara grabbed a tray and got in line for food. The lunch offerings were surprisingly good. Fresh salads, pasta, sandwiches made to order. Definitely an upgrade from her last school's mystery meat and soggy fries. With her tray loaded, Amara scanned the cafeteria for a place to sit. She didn't want to accidentally sit somewhere she shouldn't. At her last school, she'd learned that lesson the hard way when she took a seat at a table claimed by the senior class. The embarrassment of being told to move had stuck with her. She spotted an empty table near the windows, away from the main crowd. Perfect. She could eat in peace, observe how things worked, and maybe tomorrow she'd feel brave enough to try sitting with other people. Amara set down her tray and pulled out her phone, pretending to be busy while she ate. Around her, the cafeteria buzzed with conversation and laughter. She felt invisible, which was both lonely and comforting at the same time. She was halfway through her sandwich when a shadow fell across her table. "Excuse me." Amara looked up to find the blonde girl from the center table standing over her, arms crossed. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Her blue eyes were cold despite her smile. "Yeah?" Amara said, trying to sound casual. "This table is taken." Amara glanced around. "There's no one here. It's Emily's table. She's in the library right now, but she sits here every day." The girl's tone was sweet, but there was steel underneath. "Maybe you didn't know, being new and all. But now you do." Amara felt heat rise in her cheeks. Several nearby students had stopped eating to watch the interaction. She could feel their eyes on her, curious to see what the new girl would do. Every instinct told her to just apologize and move. It wasn't worth making enemies on her first day. But something about the girl's attitude rubbed her the wrong way. The casual entitlement, the expectation that Amara would just jump up and obey. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "Hold your head high. Never let anyone make you feel small." Amara set down her sandwich and looked directly at the blonde girl. "I don't see Emily's name on this table. There are plenty of other empty seats in here. I'm sure she can find one of those." The girl's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. For a second, she looked genuinely surprised, like no one had ever contradicted her before. Then her expression hardened. "Do you know who I am?" "Should I?" A few students nearby gasped quietly. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, she doesn't know that's Madison." Madison's smile vanished completely. "I'm Madison Pierce. My family has been going to this school for 3 generations. My dad is on the school board, and when I tell you a table is taken, you move." The cafeteria had grown noticeably quieter. Even students at distant tables were craning their necks to see what was happening. Amara realized with a sinking feeling that she had somehow managed to challenge the most powerful person in school within hours of arriving. But backing down now would be even worse. She'd spend the rest of the year as the girl who let Madison Pierce push her around on day 1. "Listen," Amara said, keeping her voice calm and respectful. "I'm not trying to cause problems. I'm just eating lunch. There's no reason this has to be a big deal." Madison leaned forward, placing her hands on the table. Her voice dropped low enough that only Amara could hear. "You have no idea how things work here. But you're about to learn. This is your first and last warning. Get up!" Amara's heart was pounding, but she didn't move. She met Madison's cold stare with steady determination. After a long moment, Madison straightened up, tossed her hair over her shoulder, and walked away without another word. Her friends, who had been watching from their center table, immediately surrounded her, whispering and shooting looks back at Amara. Amara tried to return to her lunch, but her hands were shaking slightly. Around her, the cafeteria slowly returned to normal volume, but she could still feel people staring. Some looked impressed. Others looked concerned for her. A few looked at her like she'd just signed her own death warrant. Jasmine, the girl from the morning, appeared at her table. "Girl, are you crazy?" That was Madison Pierce. "She basically runs this school." "I figured that out," Amara said quietly. "She's going to make your life hell now. You know that, right?" Jasmine sat down across from her. "Last year, she decided she didn't like this girl, Sarah. By the end of the month, Sarah transferred to a different school. Madison doesn't forget and she doesn't forgive." Amara felt her stomach sink. She'd been at Riverside Academy for exactly 4 hours and had already made a powerful enemy. Her parents would be so disappointed if they had to move her again because she couldn't get along. "I didn't mean to start anything," Amara said. "I just sat down to eat lunch." "I know," Jasmine said sympathetically. "But that doesn't matter to Madison. She saw you as a challenge to her authority and she can't let that stand." For the rest of lunch, Amara tried to act normal, but inside she was dreading what came next. She'd stood up to bullies before at other schools, but something about Madison felt different. More calculated, more dangerous. Amara hesitated. Then the whole story poured out. The notes, the rumors, the constant harassment. How everyone at school just accepted it because Madison's family had money and power. How Amara felt trapped, unable to fight back without making things worse. Master Chen listened carefully. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Tell me, Amara, why do you study martial arts? To defend myself, she answered automatically. No. Master Chen shook his head. That is not why. Many people learn to defend themselves without ever stepping into a dojo. They buy pepper spray or take a weekend self-defense class. But you have trained for 10 years. Why? Amara thought about it. Because it makes me feel strong, confident, like no matter what happens, I can handle it. Yes. And that strength, that confidence, does it come from your ability to hurt others? No, Sensei. It comes from self-mastery, from knowing who you are and refusing to let others define you. Master Chen placed a hand on her shoulder. This Madison, she wants to break your spirit. She wants you to either cower before her or lash out so she can play the victim. Either way, she wins. So what do I do? Amara asked, her voice breaking slightly. Just let her keep torturing me? No, you do what you have been doing. You stand firm. You refuse to be moved. But more importantly, you refuse to let her poison your heart with hate. Master Chen's grip tightened. Anger is useful in the moment of danger. It sharpens your reflexes, gives you power, but carried day after day, anger becomes poison. It hurts you more than anyone else. It's hard not to be angry, Amara admitted. Of course it is. You are human. But a warrior must learn to feel anger without being controlled by it. Let it flow through you, then let it go. He stepped back and addressed the whole class. Everyone, pair up for meditation exercises. As Amara sat in meditation pose, focusing on her breathing, she tried to follow Master Chen's advice. She acknowledged the anger. Yes, she was furious at Madison, at the school, at everyone who stood by and did nothing. But then she tried to let it flow away like water moving past a rock in a stream. It didn't work perfectly. She still felt the knot of tension in her chest. But by the end of class, she felt calmer, more centered. That weekend, Amara's parents noticed she'd been quieter than usual. Her mom asked if everything was okay at school, and Amara assured her it was fine. Just adjusting to a new place, that's all. She spent Saturday at the library getting ahead on homework. She spent Sunday at the dojo, training until her muscles ached. Physical exhaustion was easier to deal with than emotional turmoil. Monday morning arrived too soon. As Amara got ready for school, she stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection looked tired, worn down. She thought about Master Chen's words about standing firm, about not letting Madison break her spirit. I can do this, she whispered to her reflection. Just a few more months until the semester ends. I can survive a few more months. But as she grabbed her backpack and headed downstairs, she had no idea that today would be different. That today Madison would push things too far. That today everything would change. She ate breakfast with her family, kissed her parents goodbye, and walked to the bus stop. The morning was cold and gray, clouds hanging low in the sky. Everything felt heavy, oppressive. At school, the day started like all the others. Hostile stares, whispered insults, the usual harassment. Amara moved through it all like a ghost, barely present. By lunchtime, she was mentally exhausted. She got her food and headed to the table where Jasmine and the others sat. At least she had these few friendly faces now. Small victories. She was halfway across the cafeteria when she heard Madison's voice ring out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Oh, look, it's the charity case. I'm surprised she can even afford the lunch. Isn't she here on some kind of welfare program? The cafeteria fell quiet. Students turned to watch. Amara felt her face burn with humiliation. Her family wasn't wealthy, but they weren't poor either. Her father served his country. Her mother worked as a nurse. They were good, hard-working people, and Madison was treating them like they were nothing. Amara kept walking, trying to ignore it. Just get to the table, sit down. Don't react. Hey, I'm talking to you, Madison called out. It's rude to ignore people. Amara set her tray down at Jasmine's table, still not responding. Her hands were shaking with the effort of keeping her composure. Madison wasn't done. She stood up from her center table and walked toward Amara, her friends following like a pack of hyenas. You know what your problem is? Madison said, loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. You don't know your place. You come into our school, sit at our tables, act like you belong here. But you don't, you're just temporary. When your dad gets transferred again, and he will, you'll be gone and we'll forget you ever existed. Something in Amara snapped. Not into anger, but into absolute clarity. She stood up slowly and turned to face Madison directly. Are you done? Amara asked, her voice calm and steady. Madison blinked, surprised by the lack of emotion in Amara's tone. She'd been trying to provoke a reaction, and Amara's calmness threw her off balance. "I'm done when I say I'm done," Madison shot back, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. "No," Amara said quietly. "You're done when I stop caring what you think. And guess what, Madison? I don't care. You can say whatever you want about me. You can make up stories, spread rumors, turn people against me. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, you're just a bully, and bullies are weak. That's why they need to tear other people down, to feel powerful." The cafeteria was dead silent. No one had ever spoken to Madison like this before. Madison's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. "You're going to regret this," Madison hissed. "Probably," Amara agreed, "but at least I'll regret standing up for myself." "What will you regret, Madison? That you spent 4 years of high school being cruel to people who never did anything to you?" For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across Madison's face. Hurt, maybe, or recognition, but it vanished quickly, replaced by pure fury. What happened next would change everything. Madison's face transformed into something ugly. All her careful makeup and perfect hair couldn't hide the raw rage burning in her eyes. For 2 weeks, she'd been systematically trying to break this new girl. And instead of crumbling, Amara had just called her out in front of the entire school. "You think you're so smart," Madison said, her voice shaking with anger. "You think you're better than me?" "I never said that," Amara replied calmly. "I just said I don't care what you think of me." Madison's friends shifted uncomfortably behind her. Even they seemed to sense that this situation was spiraling somewhere dangerous. Emily, the same girl whose imaginary seat had started all of this, tugged on Madison's sleeve. "Mad, come on. Let's just go back to our table." Madison yanked her arm away. "Don't touch me." Her eyes never left Amara's face. "You know what? I've been going easy on you. Being nice, even. But you just don't get it. Being nice." Jasmine stood up from the table, her voice incredulous. "Are you serious right now? You've been tormenting her for 2 weeks straight." "Stay out of this, Jasmine," Madison snapped. "Unless you want to be next." "See that right there?" Amara said, pointing at Madison. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. You threaten people to get your way. You make them afraid. That's not power, Madison. That's just being a bully." The word bully hit Madison like a slap. Her face went from red to almost purple. Nobody called Madison Pierce a bully. Nobody challenged her like this. She was supposed to be admired, envied, maybe even feared, but respected. Always respected? "Take it back," Madison said through gritted teeth. "Why?" "It's true." Madison took a step closer. They were now only a few feet apart. The entire cafeteria held its breath. Some students had their phones out, sensing that something big was about to happen. "Last chance," Madison said quietly. "Apologize right now, or I swear I will make the last 2 weeks look like a vacation." Amara's heart was pounding, but outwardly she remained calm. She thought about Master Chen's teachings, about staying centered, about not letting anger control her actions. She could walk away right now, apologize even if she didn't mean it, and maybe Madison would back off. But then what? She'd spend the rest of the year, maybe the rest of high school, being Madison's victim. Always looking over her shoulder, always afraid. Her father hadn't raised her to live in fear. "No," Amara said simply. For a second, Madison looked genuinely shocked. Then something shifted in her expression. A decision made. She reached out suddenly and grabbed Amara's lunch tray, still full of food, and flipped it upward. Spaghetti and meat sauce went everywhere. It splattered across Amara's white shirt, her navy skirt, even her face. Bright red sauce dripped down her uniform. The cafeteria erupted in gasps and shocked exclamations. Amara stood completely still, sauce dripping from her chin. She looked down at her ruined uniform, then back up at Madison. Around them, phones were definitely recording now. This moment would be all over social media within minutes. "Oops," Madison said with a cruel smile. "You should really be more careful. You're so clumsy." Something cold settled over Amara. Not anger. Anger was hot and explosive. This was different. This was ice-cold clarity. She thought about every humiliation of the past 2 weeks. Every cruel note. Every rumor. Every moment of isolation. And she realized something important. This was never going to stop unless she stopped it. "Pick it up," Amara said quietly. Madison's smile widened. "What? The tray?" Pick it up and apologize. Madison laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. You're insane. Why would I do that? Because you made this mess. And because it's the right thing to do. I don't take orders from people like you. Madison sneered. She turned to walk away, playing to the crowd. Someone should get a mop for our little scholarship student. She's making a mess. Her friends laughed dutifully. Madison took 2 steps back toward her table, clearly thinking the confrontation was over, that she'd won. Then Amara spoke again, her voice cutting through the cafeteria like a knife. You're a coward, Madison. Madison froze. Slowly, she turned around. What did you just say? You heard me. You're a coward. You pick on people you think are weaker than you. You surround yourself with people who are too afraid to tell you no. You hide behind your family's money and reputation, but deep down you know the truth. Without all of that, you're nothing. You're just scared that if people see the real you, they won't like what they find. The cafeteria was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. Amara had just put into words what many students had thought but never dared to say. Madison's carefully constructed world was being torn apart in front of everyone. Madison's hands clenched into fists. Her breathing was rapid and shallow. She looked around at all the watching faces, at the phones recording, at her friends who were avoiding her eyes. She was losing control of the narrative, and she knew it. You want me to apologize? Madison said, her voice dangerously quiet. She walked back toward Amara, closing the distance between them. You really think you can make me? I think you should do it because it's right, Amara replied. But I'm not surprised you don't understand that. Madison stopped right in front of Amara, invading her personal space. You've been here 2 weeks and you think you know everything. You think you can just show up and challenge me? Do you have any idea who I am? What I can do to you? I know exactly who you are, Amara said, not backing down. You're a girl who peaked in high school. 10 years from now, you'll be telling stories about how great you were, how everyone feared you, how you ruled this school. And you know what? Nobody's going to care. Because that's all you'll have, these 4 years. After that, your name and your family's money won't mean anything to anyone. It was brutal, honest, and Madison couldn't handle it. She shoved Amara, hard. Both hands against Amara's shoulders, putting all her weight behind it. It was meant to humiliate, to make Amara stumble backward and fall, to physically prove who was in charge, but Amara didn't fall. Years of martial arts training had given her balance and body awareness that Madison couldn't begin to comprehend. When Madison's hands connected with her shoulders, Amara's body automatically shifted, absorbing the force. Her feet stayed planted. She rocked backward slightly but remained standing. Madison's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. Nobody had ever just stood there when she pushed them. Don't, Amara warned quietly. Don't do that again. Madison's shock turned back to anger. She'd just physically assaulted someone in front of the entire cafeteria, and instead of winning, she looked foolish. Amara was still standing there, calm and composed, covered in spaghetti sauce, but somehow still dignified. Madison couldn't let that stand. What are you going to do about it? Madison taunted and shoved her again. This time, Amara was ready. As Madison's hands came forward, Amara moved. Not to attack, not to strike back, but to control. Her hands came up and caught Madison's wrists in a firm grip. Her training took over, smooth, precise, automatic. She could feel Madison trying to pull away, but Amara's grip was iron. For 2 weeks, she'd endured harassment and humiliation. For 2 weeks, she'd practiced restraint and patience. But there was a difference between being patient and being a doormat. There was a difference between avoiding conflict and allowing abuse. Let go of me, Madison shrieked, suddenly afraid. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was the one with power here. She was the one who made people afraid. I warned you, Amara said quietly. I tried to walk away. I tried to ignore you. But you wouldn't stop. You pushed and pushed until you finally crossed a line you can't uncross. I'll scream. I'll tell everyone you attacked me. Go ahead, Amara said, nodding toward the dozens of phones recording everything. I'm sure all that video footage will back up your story. Madison's face went pale as she realized her mistake. This wasn't some hallway encounter with no witnesses. This was the school cafeteria at peak lunch hour with hundreds of students watching and recording every second. Mrs. Peterson, the lunch supervisor who'd been chatting with another staff member, finally noticed the commotion. Hey, what's going on over there? Amara immediately released Madison's wrists and stepped back. hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. Madison stumbled slightly, caught off balance by the sudden freedom. She attacked me. Madison cried out immediately, pointing at Amara. Did you see that? She grabbed me. Mrs. Peterson hurried over, looking between them. Other staff members were converging on the scene now. The cafeteria buzzed with excited whispers. That's not what happened, Marcus called out from his table. Madison pushed her first, twice, we all saw it. I have video, another student said, holding up his phone. Me too, said someone else. Same here, called Jasmine. Madison looked around wildly, seeing her carefully constructed world crumbling. All those students she'd terrorized, all those people she'd made afraid. They were finally speaking up. Not because they were brave, but because the truth was undeniable. The evidence was right there on their phones. Both of you to the office. Now, Mrs. Peterson said firmly. She looked at the crowd. Everyone else, lunch is over. Clear out. As students reluctantly began to disperse, still talking excitedly about what they'd just witnessed, Amara bent down to pick up her fallen tray. Her hands were steady now, the adrenaline starting to fade. Madison stood frozen, looking lost. For the first time in probably her entire life, she had no control over the situation. No way to spin it, no way to make herself the victim. Move, Mrs. Peterson said, gesturing toward the exit. As they walked through the cafeteria toward the door, Amara caught glimpses of faces in the crowd. Some looked shocked. Others looked impressed. A few were already typing furiously on their phones, spreading the news, but it was Jasmine's face that stood out. She was smiling, a small, proud smile, and gave Amara a subtle thumbs up. Whatever happened next, Amara had done something important. She'd stood her ground. She'd refused to be a victim. She'd shown everyone in that cafeteria that Madison Pierce wasn't untouchable, and sometimes that was worth whatever consequences came next. The walk to the principal's office felt like a mile. Madison walked ahead, her shoulders rigid with tension. Amara followed behind, still dripping with spaghetti sauce, but walking with her head held high. The real battle was about to begin. The principal's office felt smaller than it actually was, like the walls were closing in. Amara sat in one of the hard plastic chairs outside Principal Davidson's door, very aware of the spaghetti sauce drying on her uniform. It was starting to feel stiff and uncomfortable. Across from her, Madison sat with her arms crossed, staring at the wall with an expression that was part fury, part fear. Mrs. Peterson stood nearby, arms folded, making sure neither girl tried to leave or start arguing again. The secretary, Ms. Ramirez, kept glancing up from her computer with obvious curiosity. The whole school would know about this by now. Social media was probably exploding. The door to Principal Davidson's office opened. He was a tall man in his 50s with graying hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked tired, like he'd already had a long day, and this was just making it worse. "Come in, both of you," he said, his voice giving nothing away. They filed into his office. It was a typical principal's space, diplomas on the wall, a bookshelf full of educational texts, family photos on the desk. Principal Davidson gestured for them to sit in the chairs facing his desk. He settled into his own chair and looked at them for a long moment. "Mrs. Peterson tells me there was a physical altercation in the cafeteria," he began. "Madison, would you like to explain what happened?" Madison sat up straight, and Amara could practically see her slipping into performance mode. Her expression shifted to something wounded and vulnerable. When she spoke, her voice trembled slightly. "I was just trying to talk to Amara," Madison said. "I've been trying to be friendly since she got here, trying to help her fit in. But she's been really aggressive toward me. Today in the cafeteria, I approached her to apologize for any misunderstandings we've had, and she just snapped. She grabbed me and threatened me in front of everyone." Amara's eyebrows shot up. The audacity of the lie was actually impressive in a twisted way. "That's interesting," Principal Davidson said, his tone neutral, "because I've received 14 video files in the last 10 minutes from various students. Would you like to revise your statement?" Madison's face went pale. I don't know what you mean." Principal Davidson turned his computer monitor so they could both see it. He clicked play on one of the videos. The quality was shaky, filmed on a phone, but the audio was crystal clear. They watched as Madison confronted Amara at the table, heard Madison's mocking comments about Amara being a charity case, watched as Madison deliberately flipped Amara's lunch tray, sauce going everywhere. The video continued. Amara's calm response, Her request for Madison to pick up the tray and apologize. Madison's refusal and attempt to walk away. Then Amara's words, "You're a coward, Madison." Madison's face on the screen twisted with rage. She walked back, invaded Amara's space, and shoved her. When Amara didn't fall, Madison shoved her again. Only then did Amara grab Madison's wrists, not to hurt her but to stop the assault. Principal Davidson paused the video. "I've watched this from 7 different angles now. They all show the same thing. You initiated physical contact, Madison. Twice. Amara defended herself using minimal force. She didn't strike you, didn't hurt you. She simply stopped you from pushing her again." Madison's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Her whole world was crumbling, and for once she couldn't manipulate her way out of it. "However," Principal Davidson continued, turning to Amara, "I need to hear your side of this. From the beginning. Not just today. Everything that led to this moment." Amara took a deep breath. She'd been so focused on just surviving each day that she hadn't really thought about telling someone in authority what was happening. Now it all came pouring out. She told him about that first day, how Madison had demanded she move from a table, how she'd refused, not wanting to start her time at Riverside Academy by being pushed around. She explained the 2 weeks of systematic harassment that followed, the notes in her locker, the rumors, her belongings going missing, the constant accidental bumps and shoves in the hallway. "Did you report any of this?" Principal Davidson asked. "No, sir." "Why not?" Amara hesitated. "Because I've been the new kid before. At my last school, when I reported bullying, it made things worse. The teachers talked to the students involved, but that just made them angrier. They were more careful about getting caught, but the harassment got worse. I thought if I just kept my head down and didn't react, Madison would get bored and move on." "That was poor judgment, Ms. Johnson," Principal Davidson said, but his tone wasn't harsh. "Schools can't address problems we don't know about. But I understand why you felt that way, and I'm sorry your previous school failed you." He turned back to Madison. "Madison, this isn't the first complaint I've received about your behavior. It's just the first one that comes with overwhelming video evidence." He pulled out a folder from his desk. "Last year, a student named Sarah Chen transferred to another school. Her parents cited bullying as the reason. The year before that, I received 3 separate complaints from students who said you were making their lives difficult. Each time your parents came in, made donations to the school, and the complaints went away." Madison's father was on the school board. The implications were clear. Principal Davidson had been dealing with Madison's behavior for years but had his hands tied. "This time is different," he continued. "This time the evidence is undeniable and public. By now these videos are probably all over social media. Parents are going to have questions. The school board is going to have questions, and I'm going to have answers. My father," Madison started. "Your father is going to be called in for a meeting," Principal Davidson interrupted, "along with your mother. Madison, you're suspended for 2 weeks, effective immediately. When you return, you'll be on probation for the remainder of the semester. You'll also be required to attend counseling sessions with the school psychologist to address your behavior. If there is one more incident, just one, you'll be expelled. Do you understand?" Tears were streaming down Madison's face now, but Amara suspected they were tears of anger and humiliation rather than remorse. "This is going to ruin my college applications. My whole future." "Should have thought about that before you spent years making other students miserable," Principal Davidson said bluntly. "Actions have consequences, Madison. It's time you learned that." He turned to Amara. "Ms. Johnson, you're not in trouble. You defended yourself appropriately. However, I am going to call your parents and explain the situation, and I'm going to ask you to submit a written statement detailing everything that happened over the past 2 weeks. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir. I'm also implementing some changes to our anti-bullying policies. We're going to create an anonymous reporting system and increase monitoring in common areas. This should never have gotten this far." He looked genuinely regretful. "I'm sorry this happened to you. Riverside Academy should be a safe place for all students." Madison stood abruptly. "Can I leave now?" "Mrs. Peterson will escort you to collect your belongings from your locker. You're not to have contact with any students. Your parents will be here within the hour to pick you up." After Madison left, Principal Davidson looked at Amara with concern. "How are you holding up? That was a lot." "I'm okay," Amara said, though she wasn't sure it was true. Her hands had started shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. The reality of what had happened was sinking in. You can go to the nurse's office if you need to clean up. I'll write you a pass to miss your afternoon classes. And Ms. Johnson? What you said to Madison in that cafeteria about her being a coward, about hiding behind her family's money, that took courage. Not many students would stand up to her like that. I didn't want to fight her, Amara said quietly. I just wanted to eat lunch in peace. I know. But sometimes standing up for yourself means other people have to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves. Madison's been enabled her whole life. Today might be the first time she's faced real consequences for her actions. That's going to be hard for her, but it's necessary. Amara nodded and stood to leave. As she reached the door, Principal Davidson called out, Ms. Johnson, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're at our school. We need more students with your integrity. The nurse's office was quiet and empty. The nurse, a kind woman named Mrs. Lopez, helped Amara clean the dried sauce off her face and arms. She offered Amara a clean school t-shirt to change into since her uniform shirt was ruined. You're the girl from the cafeteria, Mrs. Lopez said as she handed Amara a wet towel. It wasn't a question. News travels fast. Honey, in this school, lightning fast. My daughter already texted me about it and she goes to the middle school across town. Mrs. Lopez smiled gently. For what it's worth, I've been working here for 15 years. I've watched Madison Pierce terrorize students since she was a freshman. It's about time someone stood up to her. As Amara changed into the clean shirt, her phone buzzed continuously in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw dozens of notifications. Text messages, Instagram mentions, friend requests. The videos were everywhere, just as Principal Davidson had predicted. Most of the messages were supportive. You're a legend, wrote someone from her English class. Thank you for doing what we were all too scared to do, said another. Marcus had sent her a simple message, respect. But there were negative ones too. Some of Madison's friends were already trying to spin the narrative, claiming Amara had attacked an innocent girl. A few accused her of being violent and dangerous. One message simply said, watch your back. Jasmine burst into the nurse's office, breathless. Oh my God, are you okay? I've been looking everywhere for you. I'm fine, Amara assured her. Just cleaning up. The whole school is talking about it. It's insane. People are choosing sides. Most are on yours, but Madison's inner circle is spreading rumors. They're saying you have a history of violence, that you were expelled from your last school for beating someone up. Amara sighed. Even in defeat, Madison was still trying to fight. None of that's true. I know. Most people know. The videos don't lie. Jasmine sat down next to her. You know what the craziest part is? I've never seen the school so alive. It's like everyone's been waiting for someone to stand up to Madison, and now that it's happened, they're remembering what it's like to not be afraid. Mrs. Lopez excused herself to check on something in her office, giving them privacy. I didn't want to be that person, Amara said quietly. I just wanted to blend in, make a few friends, get through the year. I know, but sometimes life has different plans. Jasmine squeezed her hand. My mom always says that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what's right even when you are afraid. You've been scared these past 2 weeks, I could see it. But you stood your ground anyway. That's real courage. Amara's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call from her mom. Principal Davidson must have already reached her parents. I have to take this, Amara said. Mom, she answered. Baby, are you okay? Principal Davidson just called. He said there was an incident? Her mother's voice was tight with worry. I'm fine, Mom, really, I'll explain everything when I get home. Your father and I are coming to pick you up right now. We're leaving work. You don't have to. Yes, we do. We'll be there in 20 minutes. After she hung up, Amara looked at Jasmine. My parents are freaking out. Of course they are. Their daughter was in a fight at school. Wait until they hear the full story, though. They'll probably be proud. Amara wasn't so sure. Her parents had always taught her to use her martial arts training only as a last resort. Would they think she'd escalated the situation? Should she have just walked away when Madison flipped her tray? But deep down she knew the truth. She'd given Madison every opportunity to de-escalate. She'd tried ignoring her, tried reasoning with her, tried walking away. Madison was the one who kept pushing until physical confrontation was inevitable. 25 minutes later, Amara's parents arrived. Her father was still in his military uniform, having come directly from the base. Her mother wore her nursing scrubs. They both looked worried and angry, though Amara could tell the anger wasn't directed at her. Principal Davidson met with all of them, showing her parents the videos and explaining exactly what had transpired. Amara watched her father's jaw tighten as he saw Madison push his daughter. Her mother's eyes filled with tears when she saw how calm and composed Amara had remained. When the video ended, her father turned to her. "Why didn't you tell us what was happening?" "I thought I could handle it," Amara said. "You shouldn't have had to handle it alone. That's what we're here for." Her mother pulled her into a tight hug. Her father looked at Principal Davidson. "What's being done about this Madison girl?" 2-week suspension, probation, mandatory counseling. One more incident and she's expelled. Good. Her father's tone left no room for argument. "And what about the other students who were harassing my daughter?" "The ones leaving notes, spreading rumors? We're investigating. Based on Ms. Johnson's written statement and other evidence, we'll be addressing those students as well." As they prepared to leave, Amara's father put his hand on her shoulder. "I need to say something, and I need you to really hear me. What you did today, standing your ground, defending yourself, I'm proud of you. But I'm also worried. You've been trained in martial arts for years. You know how to hurt people. Today you showed remarkable restraint. You only used enough force to stop the attack, nothing more." "That's exactly right. But promise me, if anything like this ever happens again, you'll tell us first, okay?" "Okay, Dad." On the drive home, her parents asked questions about the past 2 weeks. Why she hadn't said anything. How bad the bullying had been. Whether she felt safe going back to school. "I'll be fine," Amara insisted. "Madison's suspended and Principal Davidson says he's making changes." "We're still going to monitor the situation," her mother said firmly. "And baby, no more keeping things from us. We're a team. Always." That night after dinner, Amara went to her room and finally let herself process everything that had happened. She sat on her bed, still wearing the school t-shirt Mrs. Lopez had given her, and realized she was exhausted. Not just physically, but emotionally. Her phone continued to buzz with messages. The videos had gone viral beyond just the school. People from other schools were commenting. Someone had even made memes about the confrontation, though Amara didn't find them funny. But mixed in with all the noise were messages that mattered. Jasmine checking in to make sure she was okay. Marcus offering to walk with her between classes when she returned to school. Darius, Chen, and Aisha from lunch inviting her to hang out over the weekend. And there were others. Students she'd never spoken to, thanking her for standing up to Madison. Some shared their own stories of being bullied by her. A few said that watching Amara refuse to back down had inspired them to finally report their own bullying situations. One message stood out. It was from Emily, the girl whose seat had supposedly started this whole mess. "I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. Madison made me lie about the table that first day. She does that to everyone, makes us help her bully people or become targets ourselves. What you did today was brave. You showed all of us that we don't have to be afraid of her. Thank you." Amara read the message 3 times, feeling something shift inside her chest. She hadn't just stood up for herself. She'd shown an entire school that bullies only had power if you gave it to them. She thought about Master Chen's teachings on being a warrior. Not someone who seeks violence, but someone who stands firm in the face of it. Someone who protects not just themselves, but others who can't protect themselves. Maybe that's what she'd become today. Not a fighter, a protector. Her father knocked softly on her door. "Can I come in?" "Yeah," he sat on the edge of her bed. "I talked to Master Chen. He heard about what happened from some of his other students. He said to tell you that you honored your training today, that you showed the true spirit of martial arts." Amara felt tears prick her eyes. "I was so scared, Dad. Not of getting hurt, but of losing control. Of becoming the kind of person who hurts people. But you didn't, that's what matters." He pulled her into a hug. "You stayed in control. You used your training exactly as it was meant to be used. I couldn't be prouder of the young woman you're becoming." As her father left and Amara got ready for bed, she thought about tomorrow. Going back to school. Facing whatever came next. Madison would be gone for 2 weeks, but her friends would still be there. There might be retaliation. There would definitely be gossip. But Amara wasn't afraid anymore. She'd learned something important today. Not about fighting or martial arts or standing up to bullies. She'd learned that she was stronger than she thought. Not because of her training or her physical abilities, but because of who she was at her core. She was Amara Johnson, daughter of a soldier and a nurse. A martial artist. A survivor. And she refused to be anyone's victim. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. But tonight she could rest knowing she'd done the right thing. And sometimes that was enough. The morning sun felt different somehow. Amara stood at her bedroom window watching the light break through the clouds and realized she was nervous. Not the stomach-churning anxiety of the past 2 weeks, but something else. Anticipation, maybe, or uncertainty about what kind of reception awaited her at school. Her phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m. The videos from yesterday had exploded beyond anything she could have imagined. Local news stations had picked up the story. Student stands up to bully at elite private school. Hashtags were trending. Justice for Amara. No more bullies. Riverside accountability. It felt surreal. Yesterday morning, she'd been just another student trying to survive high school. Now she was apparently some kind of symbol. "You don't have to go in today if you're not ready," her mom said from the doorway. "We can talk to the school, give you a few days." "No," Amara said firmly. "I need to go. Hiding just gives people more to talk about." Her father drove her to school, taking a different route than usual. "There might be reporters at the main entrance," he explained. "Principal Davidson called this morning to warn us." Apparently, some news crews showed up before classes started. Seriously? Amara's eyes widened. This was getting out of control. The story resonated with people. Bullying, privilege, a student finally standing up. It's everything the media loves. But you don't have to talk to anyone. Just keep your head down and get to class. He dropped her off at a side entrance usually used by faculty. Even there, a few students were gathered, and they turned to stare as she got out of the car. Amara took a deep breath and walked toward the door. "That's her," someone whispered. "She's the one who took down Madison Pierce. I heard she knows Kung Fu." Amara kept walking, but she could feel dozens of eyes tracking her movement. Inside, the hallways were more crowded than usual. Students who'd normally be at their lockers or in classrooms were lingering, clearly hoping to catch a glimpse of her. When she reached her locker, she found something unexpected. Taped to the door were dozens of sticky notes. Curious, she began reading them. "Thank you for being brave. You inspired me to finally report my bully. Madison made my freshman year hell. I'm glad someone finally stood up to her. You're a hero." There were easily 50 notes, maybe more. Amara's vision blurred with unexpected tears. She'd been prepared for hostility, for Madison's friends to come after her. She hadn't been prepared for this outpouring of support. Pretty cool, right? Jasmine appeared beside her, grinning. "People started leaving them last night after school. By this morning, your locker was covered. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You already said everything that needed saying yesterday." Jasmine helped her gather the notes carefully. "Come on, we've got to get to homeroom before the bell." Walking through the hallways was like being a celebrity, but not in a comfortable way. Students she'd never spoken to nodded at her. Freshmen stared with obvious admiration. Even some teachers gave her subtle smiles of approval. But not everyone was happy. As Amara turned a corner, she came face to face with Emily and 2 other girls from Madison's inner circle. They blocked the hallway, arms crossed, expressions hostile. "You think you're so special now," Emily said, her voice dripping with venom. "Everyone treating you like some kind of hero. But you're not. You're just a violent thug who attacked someone for no reason." Amara noticed several students slowing down, sensing confrontation. She kept her voice calm and measured. "Emily, there are multiple videos showing exactly what happened. Your friend Madison attacked me first. I defended myself. That's not violence, that's self-preservation. You humiliated her in front of the entire school." "Madison humiliated herself," Amara replied. "She chose to flip my lunch tray. She chose to push me. She made those decisions, not me. I just refused to be her victim." One of the other girls stepped forward aggressively, but Jasmine moved between them. "Back off, Rachel. Unless you want to end up suspended too." "This isn't over," Emily hissed. "Madison might be gone for 2 weeks, but we're not. You better watch yourself." "Is that a threat?" Marcus appeared seemingly out of nowhere, flanked by 2 other guys from the basketball team. "Because threatening another student is a violation of the code of conduct. And I'm pretty sure Principal Davidson is watching this hallway on security cameras right now." Emily's eyes flicked to the camera mounted in the corner. Her confident expression faltered. Without another word, she and her friends pushed past, shoulders bumping deliberately as they left. "You okay?" Marcus asked Amara. "Yeah. Thanks for the backup." "That's what friends do." He said it casually, but the word friends made Amara's chest warm. She'd been at this school for less than 3 weeks and had already found people willing to stand up for her. First period was English with Mrs. Rodriguez. As Amara took her seat, she noticed the teacher watching her with an expression that was hard to read. When the bell rang and class officially started, Mrs. Rodriguez addressed the room. I know many of you have seen the videos circulating from yesterday's incident. I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen, but I am going to remind you all that school is a place for learning, not gossip. What happened between Madison Pierce and Amara Johnson has been handled by the administration. It's not our business to relitigate it in the hallways or online. Some students shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Rodriguez continued. However, I do want to say one thing. Standing up for yourself when someone is hurting you is not wrong. It's not violence. It's self-respect. And every person in this room deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. If you're being bullied, report it. Don't suffer in silence, she looked directly at Amara. Sometimes it takes one person's courage to remind everyone else what's possible. Now let's discuss chapters 15 through 18 of To Kill a Mockingbird. The rest of the class period passed normally, though Amara could feel curious glances directed her way. When the bell rang, Mrs. Rodriguez called her over. Ms. Johnson, I want you to know that several faculty members, myself included, have been aware of Madison's behavior for years. We've tried to address it, but, she sighed. Politics and money have ways of complicating things. What you did yesterday, standing up for yourself so publicly, it's forced the administration to finally take real action. So thank you. I wasn't trying to make a statement, Amara said quietly. I just didn't want to be pushed around anymore. Sometimes the bravest acts are the simplest ones. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. You're a good student, Amara. Don't let this situation define your entire experience here. The morning continued in similar fashion. Support from some students, hostility from Madison's remaining friends, and an overwhelming sense that everyone was watching her. By lunchtime, Amara was exhausted from the attention. The cafeteria fell noticeably quieter when she walked in. Students at various tables turned to look. The lunch staff gave her sympathetic smiles. Even the space where she'd confronted Madison yesterday seemed to carry a charged energy, like the ghost of the incident still lingered there. Amara got her food and headed to the table where Jasmine and the others sat. Today, though, the table wasn't just her small group of friends. At least a dozen other students had joined them, kids who'd apparently decided that sitting with Amara was a statement they wanted to make. Welcome to your new fan club, Darius joked as she sat down. We've had to turn people away. It's like trying to get into an exclusive restaurant. This is weird, Amara muttered, looking around at all the unfamiliar faces. It'll die down, Jasmine assured her. Give it a week and something else will be the hot gossip. For now, just roll with it. A girl Amara recognized from her history class leaned forward. I just wanted to say thank you. Madison started a rumor about me last year that I was bulimic because I'm thin. It wasn't true, but people believed her. My parents had to meet with counselors. It was a whole thing. She's done stuff like that to so many people. Others around the table nodded, sharing their own stories. A sophomore boy talked about how Madison had mocked his stutter in front of his crush. A junior girl described how Madison had gotten her kicked off the student council over a made-up accusation. Story after story of cruelty and manipulation, all centered around one person's need for power and control. Why didn't anyone report this stuff? Amara asked, though she already knew the answer. Because Madison's family has been donating to this school since before we were born, the history class girl explained. Her dad is on the board. Her mom runs the parent association. Reporting her just meant you got labeled a troublemaker while Madison got a talking to and went right back to doing whatever she wanted. Until yesterday, Marcus added. You didn't just stand up to her physically. You stood up to her in front of everyone with cameras rolling. There's no denying what happened. No way for her family to sweep it under the rug. You changed the game. I didn't mean to change anything, Amara protested. I was just defending myself. That's why it matters, Jasmine said softly. You weren't trying to be a hero or make some big political statement. You were just a person who'd had enough. That's something everyone can relate to. As lunch continued, Amara noticed something interesting. The cafeteria had reorganized itself. Madison's old center table, the throne from which she'd ruled the school, sat mostly empty. Only her most loyal friends remained there, looking isolated and defensive. Other students who'd orbited Madison's world had drifted away, sitting with different groups, finally free to make their own choices. The social hierarchy of Riverside Academy was literally being redrawn in real time. Near the end of lunch, Principal Davidson's voice came over the intercom. "Good afternoon, students. I want to address the incident that occurred in this cafeteria yesterday. The administration has reviewed all available evidence and taken appropriate disciplinary action. However, this event has highlighted some serious gaps in our anti-bullying policies. Students throughout the cafeteria quieted to listen. Effective immediately, we're implementing several changes. First, we're creating an anonymous reporting system, where students can report bullying without fear of retaliation. Second, we're increasing counselor availability for students who need support. Third, we're instituting a zero-tolerance policy for physical violence and systematic harassment. Finally, we're organizing a school-wide assembly next week, where we'll discuss respect, dignity, and creating a safe learning environment for everyone." He paused. "I want to be clear. What happened yesterday should never have happened. Multiple students were aware of ongoing harassment, and it wasn't reported or addressed properly. That's on us as administrators and faculty. We failed to create an environment where students felt safe coming forward. That changes now." When the announcement ended, the cafeteria erupted in conversation. Some students looked relieved. Others seemed skeptical that anything would really change. Madison's friends looked furious. "Well," Darius said, "I guess your 15 minutes of fame are coming with some actual policy changes. Not bad." After lunch, as Amara headed to her next class, she was stopped by a freshman girl who looked nervous. Amara," the girl said hesitantly. "I'm Sarah. I wanted to tell you something. Last year, I was in 8th grade at the middle school. Madison's younger sister, Caroline, bullied me really badly. My parents complained to the school, but nothing happened. We were thinking about moving just to get away from it. But after yesterday, my mom called the school again, and this time they actually listened. They're investigating Caroline now." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for all of us. Thank you." Before Amara could respond, Sarah hurried away, leaving Amara standing in the hallway with a lump in her throat. She'd been so focused on her own situation that she hadn't considered the broader implications. How many other students had been suffering under the Pierce family's reign of entitlement? That evening at the dojo, Master Chen called her over before class started. "You've had an interesting couple of days," he observed. "That's one way to put it. I've received many phone calls, parents wanting to enroll their children, saying they want their kids to be like you. News reporters asking for interviews, even the school board asking about your training." He studied her face. "How do you feel about all this attention?" Amara thought carefully. "Uncomfortable. I didn't want to be famous. I just wanted to eat lunch without being harassed. And yet, here you are, a symbol of something larger than yourself." Master Chen gestured for her to sit. "This is an important lesson, Amara. When you stand up in a moment that matters, you don't get to control what happens next. The ripples spread outward in ways you cannot predict. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?